Welcome back. That's right. It's the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting. And I have to tell you, today I started out my day and it started out good and it got a little better and it got a little better, got a little better. It was interesting because the day started out with one of my clients at 8 a.m. and we're talking along and I was doing a recap at the very end, and she goes, "Oh, we're good." She says, "Let me read it all back to you." She goes, "It's all here in the book of Kevin." And I started laughing. She goes, "Oh, no." She says, "There's an entire book dedicated to you." She said, "In the last year and a half, I have all my notes of everything you and I have talked about, and I can always go back and reference it." And I thought, that's kind of cool, interesting. And then I roll into my next call. And interestingly enough, I have someone else saying, "Let me look back at my notes here." And I'm like, wow, this is kind of interesting. And then I roll into my third call and I'm talking to someone else and they say, "Oh, well, let me go back and reference the notes where I was talking to you in 2014. And he did. He literally went back to 2014 and he's reading off things that we were talking about or doing back then. So what's funny is it has happened 5 times today. I literally have had 5 people I've talked to today at the point of recording this podcast who have talked about taking copious notes and again, like some of it might sound self-serving, but to me it's funny on one hand, but it's also very interesting on the other where, somebody has an entire book of all the things we've ever talked about. So, and last week, or now by the time you hear this, it would have been at least a week and a half ago, I was in Mexico for a mastermind meeting. And at that mastermind meeting, basically 3 days, not even full days, but about a couple hours each day, I walked out of there with 13 pages of notes on a legal tablet. And I showed it to a couple other people, and they were looking at it like, wow, like I can't believe you have that much because I literally have almost nothing. And, so I had some people who were actually looking through my notes and looking at what they should have been writing down and things like that. And, and really my whole reason in bringing all this to you in this podcast today is really thinking about how certain people who are very successful in the world of business, how they go about achieving their success. And I've done this in a couple other podcasts. This is really just another one. And, for myself and for a number of clients, I think all of us feel like, on one hand, we've made really, really good progress. But on the other hand, we're really disappointed in the fact that we could have or should have done more. And I think most people feel that way. In some element of their life, they feel like we've done well, but we could have done better. And if you get around enough other people, you should feel that way because you should be putting yourself in and around other people who are smarter than you. Even when I was a little kid, I wanted to hang around people who were like at least 2 or 3 grades ahead of me, or I wanted to hang around people who were old enough to be my parents or grandparents or something because you learned something from them. So in this meeting, as I said, I took 13 pages of notes with some of my clients. What we're doing with these notes is we're going back periodically, and there may be times where we say some of the things that are written down, maybe they're for us. Maybe they're for us on a personal level. And then we may have other elements of it that are literally just a quick and dirty, it's one thing I need to do. So as you look through your notes, you may have things that are evolutionary. Evolutionary in the sense that you may have written one statement on this in your notes, but that one statement could literally turn into an entire objective for an entire year. And that one objective might help you turn your team around. It may help you to grow your business. Whatever it is, it will help you, but it's an evolutionary thing in the sense that it's something that takes on a life and something you continue to work on. It's not a checklist item. And that's the other piece is as you're going through the list, like I am doing, what I will continue to do, is going through that list of notes. And there are a number of things in there. They're just tasks. So when you look at the 13 pages, you might look at it and think, oh, this is so overwhelming. It doesn't have to be, because I'm pretty sure I can take that 13 pages and whittle it down to 8 or 10 pages. And they're just one-hit wonder task items. I can call this person and do that. I can hire someone else to do this. I can schedule time to do that. They're just task things where I can literally reduce that overall list by 20%, 30%, maybe 40% just by crossing things out, by getting them done. Task list stuff. Usually it makes people feel really good. But then the rest of it is figuring out, well, is this really for me? And it's something I need to work on? Or is this something that needs to be done with my team or through my business or something? Is it something that one of my vendors needs to do for me? So you start figuring out what I have to do as an individual, and then you start figuring out what's going to be done by people in your team. And when I say team, that could be people that are W-2 employees of yours. That could be done by people who might be a subcontractor. It might be people who are, in a part-time assistant, any number of people, but they're technically on your team. And then it might be just a different category, outside vendors. So maybe it's an idea that's marketing and you don't do your marketing. Maybe you're paying a company or two companies to do all of your marketing for you. So it's really nothing more than an idea that you ask them to take this whole new theme with your marketing and implement it and the frequency. And, so you're basically telling them what to do. So when you get these long lists of notes, it's awesome because, and if we get scientific with this, it has been proven if you just sit and listen to something, you'll only retain about 10% of what you hear. If you write what you heard, and I've seen different things, you might retain 30, 40, 50. I think I've even heard maybe 60%. That you will retain significantly more, multiples of what you would have retained if you had just listened to it. So as you write it, you're committing some of these things to memory, and as you write it, maybe when you're done, you go back to your room or you go have a drink with someone else and you mastermind about some of these topics and you talk about the how and when and things like that. So in a sense, it's also turning into an activity. And when you hear a new concept and you write it down, let's just say for the sake of this podcast, you now retain 50%. If you're also doing something to actively participate, you're going to then again increase the retention. So it's making this much more likely that you're going to commit these things to daily activities. And that's really what what this whole thing is boiling down to is, what are we going to do about it, right? So when you go to meetings like this, and I've had even past clients or people who have entertained the idea of coaching and consulting, where the business owner or their team may say, this all sounds good, but let me tell you what happens. My doctor goes to a CE meeting, they come back all juiced up, and then 2 weeks later, it's back to the same old. And, it's interesting because that happens in every industry. Every industry. It happens to accountants. It happens to lawyers. It happens to dentists, home builders. It doesn't matter who. It happens to everyone. The key is, as I've led up to this, is that you figure out which things are the task items and just get it done. Just see what you can get knocked out. Block one whole day. See how much you can get done. Then figure out the things that you're going to do personally, the things that you're going to delegate to others to get done. And what of those things on that list you're going to delegate to your vendors, your outside people. That is the magic. That's the sexy part of it. If you look at my social media posts from, it would be now last week, if you look at that, it said ideas are awesome, but implementation is gold. And there's a reason I said gold, because gold has monetary value. And when you implement and you do things, it might be a little bit messy in the very, very beginning, but that's okay because we're making progress. We're moving the needle. And that is the most important part of it, is that we've started. Breaking that inertia is the absolute hardest part of all of it. So That's right. I did a whole podcast on taking notes. Can you imagine that? Sounds boring as all get out if I told you that in the beginning. But that is our podcast for today. Hope you enjoyed this one. I've got another one queued up that's going to be in a similar vein. I hope you enjoy that one as well. And as always, if you have topics you'd love for me to cover, please drop it in the comments below or send me a direct message.